Alright, y'all. Hello and welcome to a video all about trucks. This one is why are American trucks so big? Well, I am a truck guy, always have been. It's really ingrained into our culture here, although I have learned on this channel that you can find awesome big trucks really anywhere in the world, and I think that's a cool thing. But, you know, we have our big semi-trucks, our big Peterbilts and Kenworths and so on. You know, we have monster trucks, right? All the monster truck leagues, Monster Jam, Hot Wheels, monster, you know, big trucks in movies and shows, on commercials, in songs, country songs, you name it, right? I've had a big truck. I admit it. I've had a huge truck that was way too big and that I didn't utilize, you know, to its max abilities, not even close. But I did get rid of it. And one of the things was, you know, they're too expensive, right? I think newer trucks are ridiculously expensive for what you get. It's absurd, actually. You know, that's something for another video I could really dive into. I think it's crazy. I also think that our market is weird. I've learned about so many cool trucks from different markets. You know, literally our neighboring country of Mexico, all the way over to European countries, all the way down to Australia and beyond. There's so many cool trucks that are really capable, have high payload ratings, high towing ratings, are strong and durable, have diesel engines, you name it. And a lot of them are way smaller. And so in essence, it's a more impressive package and something you can actually handle, take in tighter trails, and park a lot easier. So basically, I'm saying our American trucks have become too big, too bloated, and way too expensive. And we're going to try and uncover why that is today. For reference, I'm a truck owner. I still love trucks. I have an old, 30-year-old 90s Chevy that I love, and it's super durable, dependable, and most of all, very cheap to run. Of course, there's no payments on it either. So let's get into this. This is from The Hustle, and this will be linked down below so you can check this out uninterrupted and browse their stuff. Let's go.
This was the best-selling vehicle in America for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Now, take a look at what it used to look like.
I love old trucks,
As trucks become
man.
less workhorse and more show pony, they've grown to massive proportions, in the US at least. Today, the smallest truck in the market?
What is the new hot truck in town? Maverick is...
This is the only small truck we sell, by the way. It's not like you get to pick from a bunch of small trucks. This is the only one. And it's still not that small. It's weird. It's awkward. The shape of our trucks, they're so bulky and like bloated to where this Ford Maverick is almost the size of my 95 Chevy. That's a full-on like heavy half-ton truck. Whereas this would be 2 classes below that. But yet this is almost as big, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's pretty weird.
If you were kicking tires back in 1995, you could easily mistake the Maverick for the F-150. Over the years, we've fully moved the goalposts on what constitutes as a small truck. The truth is, you can't buy a new small truck in America anymore. So consumers are turning to something less traditional, and dare I say, much cuter? But what's filling this gap and disrupting the market is a far shore from America. And along with it, entirely new businesses are taking shape to serve this new economy.
I love these and I want one. I admit it. These are K-trucks from Japan, or I think other Asian countries, mostly Japan. These things are awesome.
So to get to the bottom of why you can't find small trucks in America anymore and how exactly companies are filling this hole in the market, I had to first check my own sanity that, yes, American trucks are in fact getting bigger, huff some deeply exciting US emission standards, find the most adorable non-living thing you'll see today, explore some actually interesting new startups, and head to the grocery store real quick. I need to pick something up, don't yell at me. To track the evolution of truck sizes in America, we're gonna have to go back to 1990. Maybe 1980. Nope, you know what? 1990.
I hope they mention the chicken tax, because that's been the biggest BS, horrible thing that American consumers have had to deal with since the 60s, and that's the reason why we can't have any of the awesome and capable and durable smaller trucks from other countries, is because of the chicken tax, which is basically an import tariff on any heavy van or truck that isn't made on U.S. soil. Yeah, it sucks.
That was the turning point for trucks in the U.S.
Never been lifted.
After 1990, they got bigger and
60
longer,
years.
increasing in weight by 1,300 pounds and averaging 18 feet or more in length. In 1990, roughly 2 feet shorter. sicko. In the 1980s.
Yeah, thank you for blurring the feet pic. Okay.
See why I almost started
they started getting
Small or
bigger
mid-sized pickups
rapidly.
comprised about half the U.S. market. By the 2010s, these smaller models had all but disappeared.
God, these new trucks are so big. And look, I think some of them look good. Some of them don't. Some of them look good. There are newer trucks that I'm like, damn, you know, like I thought my newer huge Ram 2500 Power Wagon looked good, but at the same time, it was a nightmare to park, right? Like the practicality is oddly enough like not good, even though it's a big vehicle. You know, it's high to get up in, and it's just kind of a lot to live with daily. Right now, of course, if you have a business, right, we have amazing trucks here to do business with, but most people don't do that anymore. A lot of people buy pickup trucks as daily drivers, and if they get like a big, huge, chromed out truck, it becomes just this weird thing. Like, why is that a daily driver? And is that even attainable anymore when these big trucks are $80,000 brand new? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how truck prices have gone outrageous in the last literally like 7 years or so. It's
with consumers favoring larger trucks. So what happened? Why did automakers start pumping trucks full of testosterone and creatine? The answer obviously starts with chickens.
Yes.
Chickens and a few other things.
Here it
but
is.
Let's start with the chickens. So here's the deal. Back in the 1960s, America had so many chickens. So we exported them to Europe, flooding their markets with cheap chicken. Everybody loves cheap chicken, except European regulators. This global trade lowered prices, but it also started hurting the local European farmers. So in response, West Germany and France imposed tariffs on American poultry, and America retaliated.
How hilarious is it hearing this with all the crazy tariff news in the news lately and retaliations and reciprocal and blah, blah, blah. It's just funny that this is from 60 years ago, and this tariff war changed our whole life over here because we've missed out on so many awesome trucks.
Hard. Like so hard, honestly.
Where we could put something on that would really compete with Volkswagen. I'd say, now damn you, we've already done this to take care of you people. Now please behave on us. President
Lyndon B. Johnson, LBJ, fired back with the chicken tax in 1964.
Screw the chicken tax,
He was all like, oui, you hate our cheap poulet? Tariffs on European potato starch, tariffs on dextrin, tariffs on brandy. And most importantly to this story, 25% tariffs on light trucks. Not to downplay the French here, they were hit hard enough by the brandy tariff part of this whole thing, but the light truck call-out was really aimed at Germany, specifically Volkswagen. Like other European manufacturers, VW held a pretty tight grip on the small truck market. And how could they not?
Whoa. See, I didn't even know about this because we didn't have these. Go figure. That is cool. A Volkswagen truck. Look at that. That is awesome. Yeah, there's dozens and dozens of cool trucks and, you know, vehicles like this that we missed out on over the decades here in the U.S. that even South American countries, Central, you know, all the way up to Mexico got, but we don't have. It's so annoying, man.
Look at these things. What are they? A Studio Ghibli movie come to life?
I think it's cool.
Bite your arm off for one of these. Take my money. So now, with the 25% tariff, any American wanting to import one of those German blue-collar hippie dreammobiles would need to pay 25% more than usual. So, as adorable as they are, perhaps those European small trucks weren't worth that extra cost anymore. This virtually eliminated foreign truck competition on U.S. soil and cemented domestic truck dominance.
You know, I guess if you want to argue for this, it worked for a while, just in the sense that 70s and 80s square body trucks from all of the major manufacturers here in the U.S. were freaking awesome, and they're very sought after nowadays. And then, you know, so at least they did make good stuff for a while, but then it just like everything corporate greed and I don't know, like the wrong people get in charge and everything falls apart. Just newer trucks are all glitz and glam and chromed up and have all this luxury stuff, and they're just not, you don't get the same sense of rugged, you know, durability that you do with these old trucks. I think my 95 Chevy, it's bright red. Like, it looks incredible to me. It looks like a truck, and I think it looks good. and yet it looks strong and durable, like a tool. It's like a utility vehicle because it is, right? It could do work. You can throw stuff in the bed. You can hook up trailers to it, and it works. You don't have to really worry about it. Who wants to kind of, in a sense, like work with and, lightly abuse, like for lack of a better term, a $90,000 Cadillac of trucks? Like no one in a right mind wants to do that. So you just drive it to the grocery store.
With 25% tariffs, Europe suddenly found itself priced
cheaper small trucks here. I would buy one in a heartbeat if we had like a $20,000 small, but like, trusty work truck you could buy that was very simple interior, manual transmission, small engine, steely wheels. I would buy it in a heartbeat. I think a lot of other Americans would as well. And of course, our automakers, they don't want that at this point.
Out of the market. Over the years,
they would be outsold.
All those other tariffs were lifted. Could you imagine a world without dextrin? It's not a world I want to live in. But the small truck tax remained, and foreign competition never resumed. Now, you would think, Matt, wide open market segment here, where's the shovel? I'll fill it, right?
Right.
Wrong. Other countries continue to develop smaller fuel-efficient pickups.
It's not just the chicken tax that screwed us over for our, when I say us, I mean like American consumers. Because like I said, you guys, this Volkswagen truck they're showing, we can't buy that. But in almost every country of people watching this right now, you probably can buy that. A Volkswagen IWrocker, you could buy that in Mexico, but you can't buy it here. So yeah, the chicken tax screwed us as American consumers, and also the CAFE standards. Those made everything even worse.
Look at this thing. We can't have that. And this one.
Yeah, look at those.
Aliens get to ride this before we do? Back in the US, without competition, American manufacturers like Ford, GM, and Chrysler phased out their smaller truck models altogether and focused entirely on bigger money, bigger margins, bigger trucks.
That's why.
Literally. The only passenger car Ford makes anymore.
Ford doesn't even make cars. Ford is like one of the most famous car companies on earth and is as American as it gets. They used to make a whole lot of cars, even here in the U.S. Look at this. They don't make any except the Mustang, and that isn't a practical car. That's a fun sports car or a muscle car, right? But they don't make like any sedans or like any flagship cars at all. Nothing. It's all SUVs and trucks. It's crazy. They got so greedy here, and that's why they make big trucks. Dealerships only stock the fully loaded premium trims, and it's all big, fancy trucks on the lot because they can make the most money, and, their profit margins on those are the highest. It's wild. I don't know who's still buying them. I give you credit if you can afford a $100,000 truck. More power to you.
Is the Mustang. So excessive chicken exports. That's reason number one why you can't find a new American-made small truck anymore. The second reason comes from the Obama administration. And it is
he scrambled it all up.
Head scratcher. Back in 2012, President Obama passed new DOT and EPA standards requiring cars and light-duty trucks, which include SUVs, minivans, etc., to increase average fuel economy.
And screwed us with cash for clunkers, which took a bunch of good used vehicles off the road.
Economy of the whole fleet.
Like took gas guzzlers out,
54.5 miles per gallon by 2025. Well, that didn't happen. Come with me. I need to get some lunch. So what did happen? A loophole. One you could drive a truck through. Thank you. Have a good one. All right, lean in and listen closely. This gets complicated, but I got faith in you. You could do this. In 1975, the US government established fuel economy regulations for the first time. But instead of mandating that all cars and trucks reach a certain miles per gallon, they separated passenger cars from trucks. New passenger cars needed to reach 27.5 miles per gallon in 10 years. Light trucks, however, which only accounted for 1/5 of vehicle sales at the time, had to reach just under 20 miles per gallon within that time, depending on the exact type of truck. At the time, carving out this leeway for trucks made sense. Trucks were for business. Back then, the only people driving trucks were carpenters, construction workers, or farmers. Business use cases.
Right.
And the government thought to itself, let's not penalize the backbone of blue-collar work. By the mid-1980s, car companies had had enough. They successfully lobbied the Reagan administration to lower the required miles per gallon for passenger cars to 26 miles per gallon and held the light truck requirement at 20.5 miles per gallon. The chairman of Chrysler, Lee Iacocca, declared, "We're about to put up a tombstone. Here lies America's energy policy." Not a ton happened between then and the Obama administration, which threw fuel economy standards into high gear by establishing that fleet-wide average requirement of 54.5 miles per gallon for light trucks and passenger cars. So, for the first time, light trucks, which had been increasing in popularity since the 1970s, were getting the same treatment as passenger cars. Up. You see it? The loophole. Here it is. Medium to heavy-duty vehicles were exempt from this specific miles per gallon goal. Instead, their standards were footprint-based, aka, depending on the size of your vehicle, do whatever you can to lower tailpipe emissions by a certain percentage within a certain time frame. So the bigger the truck, the fewer emissions regulations.
And that's why you have a Ford Maverick that's supposed to be a very subcompact truck. In reality, it's oddly still big. Like, yes, it's smaller than a Ford Super Duty, but it's somehow almost the same size as my 30-year-old Chevy 1500 that is supposed to be 2 classes bigger than this.
So the Obama administration inadvertently incentivized the creation of bigger trucks. What? Oh, lean out. We're done with all the harder stuff now. Brain work makes my belly work. Here in 2025, Americans are fully hooked on big old pickup trucks. Or are they? If we really break it down, are these behemoths something consumers ever really wanted? Or is it just what companies were incentivized to make? Many people admit they don't actually need massive trucks for the work they do. In fact, about 2/3 occasionally or never use their truck for hauling, while over 1/3 occasionally or never use it for towing.
Now, luckily I have used mine for work probably more than that, or definitely more than that. But at the same time, I don't literally run a business with it, right? Now, some people really do use their truck a lot. Like, of course, you need trucks, and sometimes you need big trucks. I get it. Some people use their truck sometimes, like me, but that's why I can't justify buying a new one and basically getting a mortgage on a $100,000 truck. It just is not necessary. It's crazy. And of course, like I said, a lot of people just want trucks. Maybe they like, how tall they are. Maybe they like the way they look. They like how they drive. But I think more people are catching on to the whole collapse of the truck culture here in the U.S. because I've seen a lot of people online complaining about how many problems are in newer trucks and how expensive they are, right? It's just like a total weird collapse that's going on.
You guys hauling nothing. Can you get a juxtaposition of these two? Look at these two things. But consumers who want some towing and hauling capabilities without the F-150 price tag found a solution. To manufacturers producing bigger and bigger trucks. Enter this bad boy.
These are awesome.
It's tiny, it's adorable, but don't let looks fool you. They can haul everything you expect from a pickup truck.
Yeah, these have a lot of room, like almost as much room as the small beds that you can get on like a crew cab truck where you sacrifice bedroom for cab room, of course. Some of these beds are the same size or bigger on these smaller Japanese trucks, and the payload is sometimes more on these. You can haul more than one of the dressed up trucks where your payload suffers because it's so stuffed with luxury things and a big cab and seats and stuff. These things could put in work, and trust me, if you could buy these new for like 20 grand in the US, ooh, boy, would that throw a wrench in everything here. It'd be crazy.
These are K-trucks, or light trucks, and they come courtesy of Japan. They're about half the size of an American truck.
Yeah.
Significantly smaller than even the smallest American truck, following strict regulations and engine size requirements to meet Japan's light automobile regulations. In 2023, the U.S. imported over 7,500 K-trucks.
Yeah, they're
a
popping up
substantial rise
here.
From just 797 a decade earlier. K-trucks can be imported thanks to the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards regulations, which allow the import of any vehicles 25 years or older to be driven on American streets. If you're looking to buy one, you'll spend between $8,000 to $12,000 compared to $27,000 for the cheapest smallest truck in America.
Yeah, this is the cheapest truck you can get. And let me point out something real here. They will advertise, hey, this is the cheapest base Maverick at $27,000. But the problem is when you go to dealers, you can go to 3 different dealers within an hour of you, and they don't stock the cheap trucks. They only have the mid-trim, more like mid-high trim to the full-on highest trims. And so they only carry trucks that happen to be $38,000 instead of $27,000. This is the problem that you find with a lot of vehicles here now. It's just such a weird time. And I guess I'm thankful I have vehicles that I can depend on, because buying a new vehicle, especially a new truck right now, just sounds like it would be the biggest headache ever.
And yes, that includes the car, the import tax, the insurance, the chicken tax, everything.
Yeah.
And at a price point like that, it's no surprise that since 2020, K-Truck imports have grown 300%, despite only being street legal in 19 states.
Yeah,
to put
that's
it into
the problem
perspective,
too.
Just how much this market is growing.
A lot of states are stupid and don't let them be driven.
1 in 4 vehicles exported from Japan today is a K-Truck. And over on eBay, the volume of K-Truck parts sold during the first 6 months of 2024 was nearly 10 times the number of the same period in 2022. So why K-Trucks, right? Great question. And really, look at us, on the same page here, thinking so similarly. It's really commendable. I'm proud of us. We've already noted that many consumers don't actually need or want large trucks. But another, let's say, obvious reason is fuel efficiency.
Yeah.
12 miles per gallon just can't compete with upwards of 50 miles per gallon. But hold your pen there, Dickens, this isn't the whole story. K-Trucks are small business friendly. Think back to why people use trucks in the first place. For work. Talking about your local pool cleaners, plumbers, contractors, anyone who needs to haul tools around town, doesn't need to dust up the highway, and maybe doesn't have $80,000 to $100,000 lying around to invest in a new American-made truck.
Yeah.
As more folks are finding themselves in need of smaller options, 2 market responses are happening. The first is import direct companies, helping you order and ship K-Trucks directly from Japan.
Yeah.
Shops like Japan Car Direct or husband and wife teams like Sergey and Ruslana Kostyuk. In an interview with Asahi Shimbun, Sergey said, "Our business has experienced steady growth year after year, and that most folks buying K-Trucks are small business owners, including pool service providers, tree trimmers, and construction companies.
Yeah.
They find lightweight trucks practical because they can be driven on a yard and lawn without causing damage.
Right.
The other disruptors are startups, like Tello Trucks, offering micro-sized electric American trucks for half the cost of their larger countrymen. For perspective, Tello Trucks are about the size of a Mini Cooper.
That's interesting.
The company has already received about 3,700 pre-orders for the MT1, their first and only model, with customer deliveries expected to begin by the end of 2025. Equally adorable, but you can get 4 K-Trucks and
I'd stick with the K-Truck. The mechanical reliability and fuel mileage of a K-Truck, you can't beat it. I wouldn't want a small, kind of unknown EV like that, personally. But I'm glad the options are there. I do like, of course, more competition's always better.
Copy of The Expanse Season 2 on DVD for that kind of money. While K-Trucks account for a small percentage point of overall truck sales, there's a fast-growing market of Americans realizing they don't need XL-sized trucks. But if you think you do, maybe ask yourself, are all those commercials about hauling a neighborhood's worth of gravel or scaling small mountains really something you want? Or is it just the marketing talking?
It's interesting. This is the first time, at least, I think, in my lifetime, people always loved big vehicles, big SUVs, and big trucks growing up until literally a few years ago. That was a thing. That was like American culture. Oh boy, did you see so-and-so? They got a big Escalade, Cadillac Escalade, or they got a big Lincoln Navigator. Someone got a brand new big Dodge Ram Laramie, that was the thing. And I feel like, of course, that still exists. But for so many people, the economy and just how much things cost, the seemingly impossible task of trying to get a home for younger people now, All these problems we're having in the U.S., this is just another one of them. Like, people can't afford trucks when trucks 10 years ago, you could get a nice truck, let's say a mid-trim F-150, for like 35, 40 grand tops, and now they're 70. It's just ridiculous. We're not talking about a 30-year gap here. We're talking about 5 to 8 years. Like, this has been under a decade where things have just blown up in price. It's crazy. Of course, now you have the tariff shenanigans going on. Everything. Remember, a lot of American trucks and products to be in general still use foreign parts. So holy smokes, what the hell is going to happen with all that? I don't know what's going on. It's going to be something to keep an eye on. Just the whole kind of car industry, the automotive industry here in the U.S. And our market's always been a weird one. It's something I've always kind of soft complained about on the channel because there's so many cool cars or versions of cars or, of course, trucks and utes from Australia and whatever that we've missed out on, right, because of weird regulations here and so forth. But the chicken tax started it all and has never been lifted this whole time. So the U.S. government sucks. Basically, that's the lesson here. How many times have you heard me say that? A lot, obviously. So, look, I still appreciate a cool-looking big show truck or whatever. That's like American culture, and like it might be cool to see every once in a while. But it's not something I definitely want, right? I don't want that responsibility, something that big, nor do I want to spend the money on something like that. I think a lot of Americans nowadays do want something just small, strong, and dependable. So we got to stick to buying some older, good trucks that are still out there, or, of course, importing, I guess, a truck if we can, albeit the only way we're really allowed to do that is if we import a truck that is 25 years or older, of course, that being the only way we can legally import a foreign market vehicle. So, yes, even though I am a truck guy, I do think America's made some awesome trucks. I'm also always been well aware that other countries have made some awesome trucks as well, and I think they have the better formula. I think that is very easy to see, and most Americans, at least who think for themselves, usually admit that nowadays. And like I said, well, I've had phases where I used to like big trucks here. I grew out of it pretty quick and realized that for most people, the bigger trucks here that are just crazy expensive and huge and impractical, they're just not necessary for most buyers, and it's just kind of a shame that we don't have a lot of choices for smaller, affordable pickups. But that's how it is here. It's a crazy, crazy world in the U.S. And I'm going to leave it there. I can't wait to see what you guys say in the comments. I'm sure there will be some very entertaining and colorful thoughts about giant pickup trucks that we have here and the very few that kind of escape to other countries. I've seen posts about them. They're always pretty interesting. Of course, I appreciate you watching. I also apologize that I am still a little bit sick, so if I sounded bad or whatever, I apologize. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.